Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of One Plus One, your place for inconvenient truth telling and myth busting. And so happy with the guests we have on today. We are joined by Kim Brown. Kim Brown is a journalist, media critic. She is a co-host and part of Black Power Media, and she has her own program called Burn It Down with Kim Brown. She was a reporter and interviewer for the Real News Network, and as I just mentioned, she's now part of Black Power Media and the brilliant Burn It Down with Kim Brown. And this is our Make Me Want to Holler, all things Black people and all about the Black diaspora and whatnot. And yeah, she's my guest. So, Kim, first of all, thank you for, thank you for coming on such short notice, but thank you for agreeing to do this re-interview because I got a heat stroke the last time I interviewed you. So here we are.
Oh, Yuri, I'm so grateful and appreciative that you would like to have me on your show. I'm sorry that you had a medical issue the
Yeah.
last time that we spoke, so I'm glad to see that you're doing better.
Alrighty. Well, we got 40 minutes until Zoom kicks us out, and then hopefully we'll be able to cram all the questions I wanted to ask you. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So the first question I wanted to ask you is I'm curious, who are some Black female feminists, past or present, that you think our people should look into and study? When that you think our people should look and study into, because a lot of times our Black sheroes get criminally overlooked, and especially when we talk about the Black Panthers and the Young Lords, which was Puerto Rican led but had a lot of Afro Latinx folks. Yeah, like I said, a lot of our sheroes and heroes get criminally overlooked. So who are some past or even present that you think people should look into?
Oh, without a doubt, Fannie Lou Hamer. I mean, the way that Fannie Lou Hamer, what brought her to activism and organizing is a fascinating story, and then obviously the levels of attack, and then ergo her fortitude to stand strong in the face of overt racist violence, in the face of overt misogynoir. I definitely look towards Ella Baker. I look towards Audre Lorde in the present day. I think Sister Angela Davis, even though I have disagreed with some of
I
her
was I
critical.
was just about to say you have yeah, exactly. I was just about to say you are a student of Black Agenda Report, so
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, I guess the overall body of work that Angela Davis, in her lifetime of work, is basically what I'm focusing on. You know, her endorsement of Barack Obama and telling people to go vote for Joe Biden. You know, we'll chalk that up to other
exactly.
things, but the breadth of her work obviously is something to be studied and admired. Who else? And people who may not fancy themselves to be I guess, like political organizers, but someone who is an activist and a voice on behalf of Black liberation from across the pond over in London. I listened to this podcaster. Her name is Kelechi Okafor, and Kelechi is a such a brilliant voice, and she cuts through all of the nonsense very astutely with her cultural commentary and her political commentary as well.
Make sure
Dr.
to send me a
CBS.
link. Make sure to send me a link. I'm surprised I'm not familiar with her, given given Belgium is literally across the pond, and I do follow a lot UK politics and what's happening there. So
Absolutely. No, her podcast is called Say Your Mind podcast. It is very popular. I am in the it's such a good podcast. I'm listening back. I think I'm already back a year and a half of episodes. So I'm still listening to Kalechi's older stuff as I continue to listen to her new stuff as well. Obviously, Dr. CBS, Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly, who is a professor at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. She is a brilliant historian. I think Dr. CBS frames herself as a Rodneyite, as a student rather of Walter Rodney. Who else? I mean, there's a lot, honestly. Like, I appreciate obviously Black women. I am a Black woman. I stand in defense of Black women and support of Black women's issues and perspectives. And I have obviously a distinct. Oh, how could I forget Jacqueline Lukman, my sis, Lukman Nation on Sputnik Radio, the co-host of
Fellow,
By
yeah,
Any Means.
exactly. Fellow real news contributors sometimes, but both of you are, very much part of the Black Power media family. So
Absolutely. Yes, cannot ever omit Jacqueline Lugman. Yeah, let's put Jackie at the top of the list, actually. So, listen, there is not a dearth of Black women's voices from the present or from the past that we can look to, listen to, take in their perspectives. Black women, I think we are uniquely situated because of the ways that white supremacy and patriarchy are situated. That positions us at the bottom of that hierarchy. So, who sees everybody? Usually the people at the bottom looking up. The people who are at the top looking down usually don't see us, right? So we catch everything in the sense that we observe all the slights, the injustices. But on the other hand, like, I think that Black women are uniquely positioned to know in which ways that this society can be healed, in which ways it can be reborn and reframed, while making sure that everybody's needs, particularly those of the most vulnerable and marginalized, are addressed and taken care of.
and that's a perfect segue. I was going to ask about the need for Black solidarity to Indigenous people, but before I get into that, you just mentioned, and you also mentioned at the top of the show, misogynoir. So I have to ask this: as a young Black feminist yourself, do you find that Black pop culture, whether it's hip hop or elements of R&B, and even some of the great female pop vocalists and rappers, use far too much excessive sexual images and contents? Because now me, personally, I'm not even asexual, but personally I find that I get a bit turned off by the excessive amounts of of like sexuality, soft, yeah, dare I'll say it, soft porn that we see sometimes in our Black female artists, our Black female singers, and of course rap music, which has which I think the accusation is right, that rap music does engage in a lot of misogyny sometimes, and seeing Black women as just sexual objects with dancing in the swimming pools and so forth. But what's your response to that?
I mean, so I think sexual objectification of women's bodies is something that is a plague on Western society generally. I don't think it's exclusive to the Black community. The Kardashians, for example, the Britney Spears, these white starlets, who are putting body first, ahead of any sort of substance and or talent. Conversely, I feel as though even when Black women, especially if we're talking about recording artists, rappers, or singers, you see
Cardi
that coming.
B, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, Beyonce, whose music I don't like, but have to use her as an example because she's a great example of using way too much of like sexual like. But yeah.
Well, I think that's in the eye of the beholder, right? Because, for example, I mean, we don't look at pro wrestling in the same way. Like, hey, look at all these men objectifying their bodies and their muscles, and maybe they're sending the wrong message about masculinity and hyper violence, etc. Like, we don't.
They definitely are, but yeah, they definitely are. But yeah.
We don't have these same critiques for men, right? I mean, we just don't. Even when there are sort of comparable examples, we do not critique the way that men use their bodies in that way, or in the ways that men's bodies are often exploited professionally. I'm thinking of American football, where majority of former football players are left broke and desperately injured, and some of them, when they die, they have what is it, CTE, chronic traumatic
Yeah, the
encephalitis.
concussions, and literally scarred for life. So yeah,
Now,
right.
so I don't disagree in the ways in which the proliferation of these hypersexualized images can impact younger folks, and especially younger girls. And I think it does contribute to an insecurity, a lack of self-confidence, and a desire to try to make their bodies conform to this unattainable norm. like I get kind of grumpy when I see Kim Kardashian on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue or on the covers of any sort of like fitness magazines, because I'm like, baby, you did not go to the gym for this body. Let's be very clear about that. And for younger women, younger girls, younger people who are more impressionable to these images, I do think that they are very damaging, but I don't think they're exclusive to the Black community. I think this is a Western societal sort of problem here. But I do support women taking autonomy over their sexuality and using it in the ways that they. So if a Cardi B or if a Megan Thee Stallion or even Beyonce chooses, to flaunt their body in a way, I mean, number one, they're doing it because they understand the way that misogyny works. And the keys usually for women who are attempting a career in entertainment, the keys to success involve, sexualizing yourself, right? I mean, girls don't, and women aspiring to be in this business don't get the luxury of wearing, baggy clothes and presenting themselves in a way that does not show off their body. So I think it's really more of a critique of the system in ways of the system in which entertainment and accessibility for women into this industry always requires them to sexualize themselves. So these girls are really just paying the price of admission because this is what they want to do. And they understand that it's a game, but it's a double standard game and it's disproportionately weighted against women who choose not to sexualize themselves.
It's funny because like because you mentioned that we shouldn't that we shouldn't just single out Black women, but you take somebody like I listen to a lot of EDM music, so I like a lot of a lot of the female artists I like kind of are like pop vocalists and kind of dabble in electronic dance music. So take somebody like Dua Lipa or somebody like Charli XCX who have a great voice. They do not need to do that excessive sexuality stuff, and yet here they are doing it, and for me, I just find that's a bit of a pity because I mean it's already one thing when it's Lil Kim and Foxy Brown doing it, and even when they did it, there was a little bit of like I felt a bit of a classiness about it, but when it's just everybody doing it and it's just like this constant excess of dare I say it's soft pornography with Miley Cyrus twerking. I don't know. I just find it a bit of a turnoff and pity for the younger generation that feel they have to, now one up that, right?
And they're just standing on the shoulders of Tina Turner. They're standing on the shoulders of Madonna, of Cher. Women using their bodies to gain attention in the entertainment industry is unfortunately not a new concept. And of course it's based, on a patriarchal system of objectifying women's bodies. Women's bodies have always been for sale. And this is just the latest iteration of that. You know what I mean? So I unfortunately, I think I'm so conditioned by it. I have sort of accepted it. I've sort of accepted it. Like I don't agree with it. I don't approve of it. But I understand that the game is the game, right? And this is exactly kind of what that is. Now, I agree in the ways that these images can be harmful, can be detrimental to the self-image of impressionable young folks. But I don't know. It's selling records.
Well, Zendaya looks good with her clothes on, and Paloma Faith did once say to Beyonce and so forth, "You can put your clothes on. You don't need to be, sexy and have to." Do all that, but I guess I'm of a different school of feminist thought in that respect. Then, but then that's a perfect segue then to this question, which is about hip hop music. So I have to ask you, as somebody who does consume hip hop, where do don't you miss the period of Black and of rap music when we at least had diversity? So you had the bling bling rap of Cash Money. Jay-Z, then alternative rap with a little bit of like social consciousness like Wu-Tang Clan, Nas, and so forth. And of course, and I grew up in California, West Coast gangster rap of, NWA, Snoop, Tupac a little bit dabbled in it, but like, yeah, Easy E, MC, MC Ren, MC Breed, Ice Cube, and so forth. Now, don't you miss that period of diversity? And when the Black conservative movement and the Black feminist leadership class was complaining about too much gangster rap, well, now be careful what you wish for, because now we really don't have any of that. We had an extreme amount of like bling bling rap, but now we don't even have much like of diversity where we had rappers who, even if somebody accused them of glorifying violence, they were at least talking about the realities of living impoverished lives in the ghettos and so forth. So yeah, I'm curious your response on on all of that.
So to answer your question, yes, I do miss the golden era of rap music when you said there was a diversity in the kind of messages that were allowed to get out there, a diversity in the kinds of sounds, the kinds of rappers, from all regions all across this country. What I think happened in part, obviously it was discovered by the record industry. Oh, here's yet another genre of Black music that is extremely profitable and that we can market and exploit to enrich ourselves. Much in the ways of rock and roll and jazz. Before rap, the same way that whites took over those genres of music, here we are with rap music also being subjected to those colonizer efforts, right? But I think, in part of this, we are in this situation where everything sounds homogenous and very much the same. I was just thinking, like, it has to do a lot with consolidation in the same ways in which there are a deficit of diverse media voices in the ways that we have seen media outlets, both digital and print, and former so-called traditional media outlets, the way we've seen them go away as a result of media consolidation, where these ginormous media companies like Time Warner
Yeah.
are just gobbling up everything. And that leaves us with, very few outlets to present different perspectives to complicated stories. I mean, this is the same thing that's basically happened to the record industry. You have had so many labels. I mean, the part of the proliferation of diverse sounding rap music during the 90s era was because there was a lot of smaller labels that weren't operating under the umbrella of the big boys, under the Def Jams or the Universal Music or
Hmm.
Warner Brothers, etc.
Yeah.
So more artists had an opportunity to be heard, and I think you know the market supported that in some sorts. I mean, when you go back and look at in the 80s and 90s, especially some of the rappers and some of the albums that actually sold very well, 1 million gold sales make it platinum, 2 million sales, and I mean it was really remarkable in the ways that record sales were able to be accomplished during that time before everything was digitized. So what we
Well,
have left is the
well,
most
whatever,
profitable.
whatever pots some of these rappers are consuming. I mean, there was just a period where after the overdose of bling bling rap, there was what they called sort of like mumble rap and stuff like that, and kind of like stoner SoundCloud rap, which was why I didn't like Kendrick Lamar in the beginning. But now that but then after getting exposed to like spoken word poetry and stuff like that, I actually developed like an appreciation for Kendrick Lamar, and of course there are some songs of his which really are just just that damn good. But yeah, but when it comes to like the kind of like old school, like this was a verse, this is a hook. That's why I really like J. Cole, Big Sean, even though that's rap music that has nothing to do with like politics or how affluent one is. But yeah, your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I have to tell you, like I tuned out of mainstream rap in 2008. I think
Okay.
I think that's about accurate, and I think that was an appropriate time for me to tune out of rap music because again, like rock and roll of yesteryear of the 50s and 60s, I mean, this is music for the youth. I listen to my era of rap,
Yeah.
still very much consume it heavily. But well, and I think this is
Well, and well, there's no shortage of good, and again, there's no shortage of good stuff to listen to from that period.
yeah, but I'm not also trying to stay hip for anybody. I don't have children. I'm not here to keep up with what the kids is listening to. I don't really care what the kids is listening to. I think the kids' parents need to be concerned what the kids is listening to. So I don't. I honestly, I've never consumed a. I actually listened to one of J. Cole's albums once. And I don't hate him. I don't think he's a bad rapper, but he's just not for me. You know what I mean? I feel that way about Drake. I feel that way about a lot of these rappers. Pretty much the only newer rapper that
Drake, I can understand that completely from Drake, but J Cole, I'm surprised by that. Okay,
no,
interesting.
I'm just not interested. You know what I mean? And I'm also at an age where I am less interested in hearing from male voices that I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I think at my big age, like I have overdosed on the male perspective of a lot of things. And I can appreciate J. Cole. I do sort of make my opinions about him based sort of on what other people say. And I know, there's been a time or two where he may have towed into a misogynoirist lyric or three, and I mean, it's fine. Like I'm
Such is the
glad that.
problem, but that is such is the problem with rap music, reggaeton music, and so forth. But yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm at an age where I'm not. I don't find entertainment value in that anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's bad enough that I already consumed the misogynistic music of my era, of my youth, right? Like I still consume that music. I'm not trying to consume the 2022 version of misogynoirist rap. You know what I mean? I'm just content to let the kids have it. I will let the kids have it, though I do like Megan Thee Stallion quite a bit, though. I love Megan.
but that's a quick follow up before we get to the human condition that's affecting our people. Then is is isn't rap though like the criticisms of gangster rap, which I will defend. I mean, I will denounce misogynistic rap, but I will defend gangster rap. But isn't that one of those things where it's damned if you do, damned if you don't? If you don't talk about like the ghetto and presenting the point of view of the machismo, jerkwad gangster, it's damned if you do gangster rap music where you highlight what's going on in the ghettos, but now it's damned if you don't, because now everyone complains that nobody talks about the conditions of our people and so forth.
Well, I think honestly that most rappers, probably 99% of the rappers, literally do not have the range, you know what I mean, to address issues from a lyrical standpoint, excuse me, that would engage our people politically. I mean, they just don't have the range, right? I mean, they talk about this simplistic, basic stuff, and I'm not even to say that observational rap about poverty conditions. I mean, I don't think that's basic. I think that's good. I think that's cultural commentary in a way put to artistic form. So I support that. Usually, to me, what is so called gangster rap is a reflection of the amount of violence that is very prevalent and very regular in American society. I mean, America is a violent place. It is violent. People get shot in this country all the time. People, over this past weekend, there were, I think, 5 people got murdered in my county where I live in Prince George's County, Maryland. And I think an additional 4 or 5 got killed in Washington, D.C. This was over the course of a weekend. This is just one region. This is just one sliver of a very large country. So I don't, whether or not I support gangster rap is kind of not the point. Like I get it, like I understand the purpose that it serves, but again, it's also very commercialized, and easily monetized. I mean, non-black audiences consume gangster rap at very high levels. So I don't, again, like it's hard for me to argue against people who are literally just trying to survive capitalism like the best
Yeah.
way that they can. And if rapping about even perhaps an experience that they have not themselves lived, but because they understand that this perspective of the ghetto, this glorification of poor life, it is something that people consume at a high rate. I get why people go and do that.
Well, just goes to show you how capitalist America is. That your choices of rap music is the one who talks about how poor and impoverished they are, and therefore they have to commit crime, or the one who's all about bling bling. I'm living an affluent life, and I have a great sex life.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and that hyper consumerism, that hyper capitalism of these, luxury goods and this luxury lifestyle, I do find that to be very damaging, actually. Like, I would prefer people told quote unquote ghetto stories
yeah,
than tried to sell this, Louis Vuitton lifestyle to me. You know what I mean? Like, not even to me, but to us in general, because nobody's living that life by and large. Most of the people in your everyday circle are not wearing Louis Vuitton and Gucci and diamonds and all of this shit. But these are the things that people prioritize in their life. And by, comparatively speaking, they will judge their own lives by their lack of these material things. And that's, again, that's another ways in which capitalism is so harmful to the overall psyche of our people. Like, it tells us that without these material things, we as people are less than. You know what I mean? And obviously, that's not the case. So.
perfect segue into this question. Yeah, that's perfect segue into this question, which is, have you been hearing folks from local Black Lives Matter to progressive churches and those involved in the police accountability movement talk who talk about defunding the police and and abolishing the police? Have you heard from many of them talking about ending the drug war? Because I find it shocking that the book, Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, in which she explicitly says that the drug war is a racist, classist war, and yet I'm surprised that among so many social justice warriors and and the broad Black Lives Matter, that I'm not hearing people saying that we need to end the drug war. We need to approach drug abuse as a mental health, as a mental health issue. And when and even if we talk about demilitarizing the police, we all have to, like the drug war is paramount to that. So are you hearing our movements talk about that, or is it still, or do people still have this conservative blind spot of theirs where they just cannot conceive the idea that people can have recreational drugs responsibly and not be arrested for it?
So I think that the calls to end the drug war is something that you may not hear specifically as a policy demand from activists these days specifically, but I think the sentiment is definitely still there. And I think the reasons that you may not hear specific calls to end the drug war is because in a lot of places, I mean, law enforcement has softened or at least maybe changed their approach on drugs. And what I mean by that is because in about half of the states here in the US, marijuana is available and legal for medicinal use, and in some places, several places, lots of places, increasingly growing more places, available for recreational sales. And
I think you even told me that even like in where you're based, Maryland, yeah. Continue on with what you were saying.
Oh no, like I mean, perfect example. Well, I can't exactly recall what Maryland's decriminalized limit is, and again, marijuana is not legal in Maryland, but it's looking pretty legal in Maryland. But in Washington D.C. specifically, you are allowed to have 2 ounces on your person legally, right? So the police don't have as much foray into stop and search or stop and frisk for drugs in the same ways that they used to in both
Yeah,
Maryland and Washington, D.C. For police to engage you in a search of your body or your vehicle, the smell of marijuana is no longer probable cause, which is really a big deal because that was usually the pretext for police to try to search you for further contraband. They could always say that they smelled marijuana, whether or not they actually smelled it or not. Sometimes they would lie and say they smelled it as a reason or as an excuse to try to, shake people down or stop and frisk them, etc. But I think the sentiment of ending the drug war still remains. But the problem is that law enforcement has sort of shifted priorities from the war on drugs to the war on guns, which I know in America, people are like, America has a war on guns. Well, if you're Black and non-white, yeah, there is a war on guns. Black people do not have the same Second Amendment rights to bear arms as white Americans do. We've seen that proven time and time and time again, most tragically in the example of the police murder.
I just have to interrupt for a moment. Zoom is probably going to kick us off in about a couple of minutes. I will try to restart the meeting if it's possible. But yes, continue on with what you're saying. And I just wanted to give you that warning because I'm in case you go like, what the hell just happened?
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. What was I saying?
So yeah, you're saying that so the war on drugs, they're starting to loosen that up a bit. But the war on guns, in other words, well, we have to fight crime, so we have to be very tough on on Black people when they commit gun crimes. So yeah, like you were saying, the Second Amendment, it's not, it's simply is not equal for Black and Latinx folks when there's gang violence and whatnot, right?
Well, not even. There doesn't even have to be violence involved. There doesn't even have to be an actual crime committed with the gun. Gun possession is enough of a felony. In a lot of places, it carries a mandatory minimum sentence simply for carrying a gun, simply for possessing it, which is bullshit because simply possessing a gun and carrying it on your person is not a violent act. It doesn't even denote that you will commit violence, and it ignores the fact that
and on top of that, I mean, sorry to interrupt. I think we should repeal the Second Amendment. I think it's so effing stupid. But these are people practicing their constitutional right, which is you have the right to bear arms responsibly. I hope, but but that's crazy.
Indeed, I mean it is, and it really negates the fact that especially Black and brown people, but we can specify Black and brown boys and men who live in violent environments, whom themselves have either been victims of gun violence or they know someone that has been a victim of gun violence. So if you live in a high crime area where people have been robbed and been killed, I'm sorry, you don't want to be the only one walking the block with not a pistol. Right? You do need something to protect yourself because the police do not keep our community safe. If that was the case, then we wouldn't have such high rates of violence in impoverished areas. The police would actually, quote unquote, be doing their job, but that's not their job. Their job is not to diminish crime. The job is not to pursue criminals, rapists, the people who pollute the air and in the water. No, they are there to keep Black folks and brown folks in line, keep them in place, to keep them incarcerated and hemmed up in the system in some way, shape, or fashion. But it ignores these gun laws, these possession laws, ignore the fact that America is dangerous, okay? America is a dangerous place. And I assure you, the police would not be out here walking the streets without guns themselves. So people who choose to carry for self-defense, I think should be allowed to do so. And the reason that I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment is because, again, being Black in this country, all my enemies have guns. It would be folly for me to be here unarmed.
I would say, though, that you don't need a Second Amendment for that. If somebody is going to attack you with a gun, you have the right to protect yourself. I just don't understand why you need that thing on the books, especially when a well-regulated militia, which is what the Second Amendment, was all about. It's all about keeping us niggers and Sphinx and Native Americans and Indians like in line. So that's why I don't understand why why some of my fellow leftists have this, blind spot when it comes to Second Amendment, which I think is a stupid law that should be repealed, because then you wouldn't have this gun violence epidemic. But that's a whole different well, respond to that before I change subject. But yeah.
No, I mean, I don't really have a response to it. White folks and men are armed in this country. I too need to be armed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. But then, okay. But then you already brought up police, state terrorism, police brutality. Where do you stand on the whole radically reforming the police? So ending the drug war, ending the militarization of the police, and yeah. So yeah. So are you more of a radical reforming of the police, or are you very much in favor of abolishing the police? And if you are in favor of abolishing the police, would you like to do it the way our friends at Black Agenda Report advocate, which is community control over the police?
So I absolutely support abolishing the police. The police are an antiquated institution founded in racism, founded in anti-blackness, and their sole purpose, their whole, raison d'etre is
Mm-hmm.
to keep Black people in line, to make sure that Latinx and Native people know their place, in which is underneath white people. Let's be
And
very
queer people,
clear about
yeah,
that.
and queer people too. We also can't overlook that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the police are there as a social check, as a armed state function to make sure that non-white communities know their place, and are always under the fear and assumption that they can be hemmed up by the state at any point in time. So I definitely support abolishing the police. I am in favor of community control of the police. I think it's time that we radically either eliminate or drastically reduce police budgets and redistribute them into programs and into other areas in our budgets. For example, healthcare is something that's desperately needed here. And by the way, abolishing the police also includes abolishing the military industrial complex. The United States by far spends heads and shoulders on military defense than the next several countries combined, and that it's offensive to humanity for that much money to be spent on destruction and on war. And the police are a microcosm of that. They are an extension of that. They are there to destroy lives. They are there to fuck with people to the point that their life will never be the same again, guilty or innocent. Yeah. So
So for you, you're definitely not one of those people who only wants abolishing of the police at home. For you, it's inextricably linked that we have to, yeah, that's abolishing the police, community control over the police. We need to do that defo with the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, and yeah, dare I say, the U.S. military itself, right?
there's no reason that this country has 800 military bases around the world. There's no reason for that. It's actually inexcusable. Imagine if China had a fraction of the number of military bases around the world. Americans would be losing their shit. They would think that China is going for global dominance, and we would be like, yeah, it kind of looks that way, doesn't it? In the same ways that the United States has pursued these same endeavors to have a foothold and really a fist hold over certain regions, specifically non-white regions of the earth, to make sure that there is at least some sort of military influence there, some sort of multinational corporate influence there to exploit the labor and the resources of these areas around the world. And the U.S. military helps American companies and North American companies to do just that, and European countries to do just that. But I don't think there's any point of even
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to part two of my interview with Kim Brown of Black Power Media and Burn It Down with Kim Brown, formerly of the Real News Network. Okay, so Kim, so yeah, you were saying about why if we are going to abolish the police or have radical community control over the police, how it's linked to ending U.S. militarism, imperialism overseas. So if you can just explain, what you were saying before you got interrupted, and then I have three last questions for you.
Listen, anyone who is trying to push reform of the police as a serious policy effort is deeply unserious themselves. There is no reforming this institution. This institution is hundreds of years old, and it had one designated specific mission, and that is to control the blacks, control the Negroes, disrupt them, displace them. That's it. They are chaos agents. They are agents of white supremacies. They are tools that use anti-blackness as ways of reinforcing the racial hierarchy, specifically that is in America. And there's no reforming the police. There is no amount of reforms that work. We've seen body cameras not work. They have been there to document when black folks have been murdered unjustifiably, but they are not a bringer of justice. That does not mean that the murderer, the murderer wearing the uniform, is going to be held to any sort of accountability or even any criminal prosecutions. So all these attempts at reforms have been feeble. They have fallen drastically short, and they have done nothing to address the inequities that lie specifically in the ways that American police go about their jobs.
And you find that the police, because you say that this is all that you say that ending, U.S. imperialism, militarism is linked to justice, racial, social justice at home. So just like because I'm of the opinion, I'm not so much an abolitionist yet. Community control over the police, yeah. I'm not sure if I'm an abolitionist yet, but if I do follow that argument that there is no reforming the police because they were founded to be the racist, classist, state terrorist thugs, heteronormative thugs that they are. I mean, I would definitely say that about the CIA and U.S. militarism. So if I apply that logic that there is no reforming the U.S. military, there is definitely no reform the CIA. So you think I should apply that logic then to the police, given all the stuff you and L. Jones and Margaret Kimberly and Robert Maynard have written about the police then?
I mean, you have to look. I mean, just look at the record. Look at the results. What do they do? I mean, what do they do? Seriously, like usually the police, and usually always the police are coming to the scene of a crime after a crime has been committed. They don't prevent crime. They don't stop crime from happening. Even in instances where we're talking about national law enforcement agencies like the FBI, the man who shot up the Tops supermarket in Buffalo, New York, killing 10 people, most of them black, he was on a list. He was on a list. He had been red flagged as part of these red flag laws in which the New York State police and federal partners and the FBI were supposed to check on these people. That's not what they do. Like they don't do anything. All of these mass shootings, I would imagine that if law enforcement is actually doing the job, some of them could even be prevented. But we have seen that's not how this works. They are more interested in pulling over black people who are allegedly committing moving violations, expired license tags, something hanging from your rear view mirror. One of your rear brake lights is out, and that was the pretextual stop that got that young man in Akron, Ohio, shot 60 times. They fired 90 bullets at him. So if the police do that shit, what is their reason for being? Like, what is it that they actually do? They do not keep us safe. They don't keep black communities safe. They don't keep brown communities safe. As a woman, the police's track record on pursuing and catching rapists and people who molest and abuse children is abhorrent. Those are crimes that either the culprits are never found, or when they actually do get put in the criminal justice system, oftentimes they do get slaps on the wrist. Or if we're talking specifically about rape, there are tens of thousands of rape kits that are languishing in police departments across this country being untested. So again, I ask, like, what function does the police usually serve? What do they serve? Do they keep communities safe? I would argue no. So why are we funding them more than we're funding healthcare, more than we're funding public education, more than we're funding trying to combat climate change? It's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense when you look at it from the prism that they are there to uphold a system, and they are up there to uphold that system by force.
Going to have you back on the program with two other Black abolitionists when it comes to that, because very interesting points, but we don't have yeah, we don't have enough time to explore everything. My second to last question, though, before I let you go, I cannot have an interview with Kim Brown and not ask her this, which is solidarity to our Native American brothers and sisters, elders, and so forth. One of the reasons why I really like why I really like your journalism and that of Solomon Kamajan and his team at Your World News is you explicitly showed solidarity to Native Americans and did several programs with Stir Crazy with Kim Brown on the Real News Network about showing solidarity to Native Americans, having Indigenous voices. So I have to ask this, which is, when do you think there will come a point in America where the plight of Indigenous people gets as much attention and solidarity as, anti-imperialism, Palestine solidarity, Black Lives Matter, Latinx Lives Matter, queer liberation, or broadly feminism? And when we talk about feminism, we're basically talking about like white feminism and stuff like that, or workers' rights. So when do you think the plight of Native Americans, when do you think they'll finally get the solidarity and the attention which has been which they deserve and has been criminally overlooked? And I do say this, I don't shit on the US left that much, because I do find the US left is great on all the other issues I mentioned, but I do find that the US left and the Black left have failed in showing solidarity to Indigenous Americans, Indigenous Hawaiians, and Alaskans. And yeah, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's reasons for that. One of my earlier shows on Burn It Down with Kim Brown, I did a show titled, I think it's called The Double Struggle of Being Black and Native. And I
Mm-hmm.
interviewed a woman named Marilyn Van, who is a Black Cherokee woman from Oklahoma. And she told us very explicitly the ways in which anti-Blackness is very prevalent in Indigenous communities in this country. There's not a community that did not, pardon this, if this is an inartful uh,
Yes, yes,
thing, but what I'm
yes.
saying is that everybody,
There are some Native
everybody
tribe leaderships that engaged in slavery.
Oh, definitely engaged in slavery. Like, make no mistake about it. Like, I mean, that's not even in dispute that some native tribes did own slaves, and they were all not benevolent to their enslaved people. Every community in this country, to some extent, has drank the white supremacist Kool-Aid, and they have believed and adopted all of the worst mistruths about each other, right? Some natives participate actively in anti-Blackness, and we've seen the ways in which Black members of tribes have been excluded from tribal leadership, from benefits, from solidarity. And I want to shout out my sister Johnny J, who is a Native woman. She is an activist, and she continues to speak out very strongly and fiercely about the anti-Blackness that exists in Indigenous communities. There's a lot of colorism in Indigenous communities. I mean, Indigenous communities have their own set of issues, very much like Black American communities have these issues. And I think that once we can tear down anti-Blackness as a barrier, I think some of the solidarity will begin to open up some. And Unfortunately, I think the allegiances of yore, when the Black Panthers were standing firmly with the American Indian movement, when they were out, I think Angela Davis herself visited Wounded Knee on Sioux territory when there was a siege between the Native activists and the FBI. Free Leonard Peltier is a call that I see put out often by Black activists. He's a Native man who has been incarcerated for decades, and he is experiencing very poor health, and he deserves to be out of jail. And I see Black activists lifting up Leonard's name. So I think the framework, the foundation is there, but I think very much in the same way that it is sometimes difficult for Black Americans to build coalitions with, let's say, similarly situated white folks who are in our same class range. I mean, if people are racist, I can't build with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if whether or not you're a white or whether or not you're a native, if you look at me as a Black person and you think I'm inferior or you think I'm less than, that makes me less than enthusiastic about speaking up on your behalf. But
Yeah.
I understand that not all natives hold that position, but I do understand that some native communities are still firmly anti-Black. So I think it's just going to take some time.
Well, I would just say though, in the defense, everyone has benefited off of the stolen land of Native Americans, dispossessed Native Americans, and we at least got a middle class, whereas Native Americans are poorly represented in all aspects of health. More Native Americans are killed by the police than even Black folk. Many of them, of course, the highest rates of mental illness and death by suicide and so forth, and some feeling the need to go into that ghastly military and so forth. And I would just say, I think Black people, we do have 99 problems, but I don't think Native Americans are like top 5 or top 10 or even top 20. But I would love to see though. Like in Canada, there's a very strong solidarity between Black Lives Matter and Native Lives Matter there, and I just would love to see that in the U.S. because evidence of Black Black and Latinx, Black and Puerto Rican solidarity, and I think that nothing is going to change in the U.S. until that issue is definitely addressed, because anything less than that, our victories are only half won, don't you think?
There's no doubt about that.
In the struggle to end the ghastly system of white supremacy and U.S. Imperialism, the root of all that evil is, of course, the dispossession of our indigenous brothers and sisters, right?
As much as racists tell Black Americans to go back to Africa, which, by the way, I would be very happy to do, they should take their own advice and go back to the motherland or the fatherland, whatever it is. They should go back to Europe and go to the land of their ancestors and to their foremothers and their forefathers, and let the Native people have their land back. I support the land back movement. In the couple of ways in which we have seen Native lands returned back to Native hands and tribal control, I support all of that. And if Black people are living on those lands, I still say give the Natives their land back, and we will figure out a way to coexist. But I agree. I mean, America's original sin is the genocide and the displacement of indigenous peoples of this continent. And until that is rectified, I don't see how other groups can expect to have any sort of reparation or recompense for the wrongs that have been committed against us also.
And solidarity is beautiful. There is nothing more beautiful than watching the George Floyd solidarity protest and Black Lives Matter Canada and Native Lives Matter merging together. And I think such a thing can happen in the U.S. and it'll be very much an unstoppable force. Has to be, yeah, because of anyways, all the reasons I just mentioned. So, Kim, before I let you go, we usually end the program with the questionnaire done by James Lipton of Inside the Actors Studio. It's your turn to do it before you go off and enjoy dinner with your friends. So, Kim, what is your favorite word?
Fuck.
But it actually is my favorite word. What's your least favorite word?
Nigger ER. With the ER on the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. Least favorite word. Yeah, yes. The N word, and oh boy, do I have stories to tell you about
No,
that.
no, but specifically with the ER on the end, the hard R on the end,
Yeah.
because yes.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I am moved by good music. I love musicianship. You know, the music of today, I can't really get into because nobody plays instruments. But I there nothing replaces a good band that has a good rhythm section, a good drummer, good bass player, and that's band across genres: funk band, R&B band, rock band, thrash band, whatever. I love live music. I love going to see good live performances.
What turns and yeah, then what turns you off then?
What turns me off, patriarchy, men explaining things to me is huge turn off, huge turn off.
Hope I didn't do any of that.
No, I did not get that from you, but no, just like the ways in which women and girls are conditioned to just sit and listen to men and listen to men and let men talk and let men talk. As I get in more into my middle age, I just don't have the patience for it, and I just won't do it. Mm-mm.
Yeah, nothing worse than when men suck up all the oxygen and you have like the one woman there who cannot get a word in because of all the douchebag men. What sound or noise do you love, followed by what sound or noise do you hate?
The sound of noise that I love. Well, I love to hear. Um, I have a dog now. She is an elderly dog. She is almost 14 years old. So when I hear
In
her
dog
like
years, that's like how old is that? Like in
uh,
dog years?
she's over 90 in dog years.
Damn.
Uh,
Okay.
so when I hear her dreaming, because she has a very active mind, she howls, she barks, she growls. You can tell maybe she's fighting in her dreams. Like when I hear her name is Bagheera. When I hear Bagheera dreaming, it is a sound that I really really love.
And then what sound or noise do you dislike then?
Did I already mention men explaining things to me? Like, did I say that? What's another
That
sound
that
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 I?
I that so that's what turns you off, and that's also a sound that you dislike. And well, your favorite word is the F word, but then what's your favorite curse word then?
That's a good question. My favorite curse word. Well, maybe I should change my word then. Maybe I should change my favorite word to what is a word that I really love? There's a lot of words that I love, and of course, I can't think of not a one. But I guess my second favorite, if we're talking about curse words, okay, if fuck is my first favorite curse word, then obviously shit has to be I guess my favorite curse word because I mean it's person place a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's same with fuck. They have all these different grammatical uses in the English language, so I can appreciate. I love profanity. I love I love cursing. I like listening to people curse. I love a song like an artiste like Richard Pryor or
You could
George Carlin.
you could watch the worst movie in your life, but the moment somebody drops an F bomb, you just cannot stop
No,
laughing.
well, no, to me, I mean, it's artistic and it's intentional. Like people cursing just for the sake of cursing to me just sounds like that's what middle schoolers do. But when you are using profanity as a device, as a tool, as an emphasis, as a point of emphasis to underscore the larger point in what you're making, I think being profane is actually it can be a work of art. And again, Pryor does it very well, did it very well. Same with George Carlin, just very
Yes, that's my
masterful at the ways
hero.
that they use profanity.
I know people that can quote Vladimir Lenin and Karl Marx top their head. Me, it's George Carlin. Then,
Yeah.
what profession, if you weren't doing the brilliant journalism that you're doing, what profession would you love to do? followed by what profession would you absolutely not want to do under any circumstances?
Well, I can answer the first one, the last one first. I would absolutely not want to be doing my job as a as a host on any mainstream cable network because I think that
Really? Okay.
well, networks like CNN and MSNBC to me are kind of like the dregs of humanity. Like they are not the places that people should go for good political analysis. And I think it's the place where sellouts live, right? Basically, and that's across races, that's across classes. If you're on these cable news networks, chances are you have sold out in some way because especially the political left in America is ignored by the mainstream, and you never hear those perspectives, those views on those cable networks. So I think that like that to me is like a terrible fucking job because you basically have to constantly uphold the values of the power structure. You know what I'm saying? So so fuck that. What was the previous question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. What if you weren't doing the brilliant journalism that you're doing? What would you love to do?
Well, there is a woman, a black woman that I follow on social, or pardon me, on YouTube. Her name is Stephanie Perry. And Stephanie Perry is showing Black American women and Black British women the ways in which they can exit their country and live abroad. And she's a professional house sitter. So if I wasn't doing this, I would probably be doing what Stephanie Perry does and be a professional house sitter, be a professional beach bum. I'd be bopping around the Caribbean, just squatting in different people's houses, babysitting their houses, house sitting.
I'll send this memo to all Black women if they are looking for that place to move. Just go to the Caribbean. Just go to Jamaica or Trinidad. I mean, Black Caribbean people are basically like the Italians of like the Black, diaspora. So you got sun there, you got cheerful people there, you got reggae music. What more do you want?
Yeah.
Then, I think this is the final one. If heaven exists, what would if heaven exists, Kim Brown, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You don't have to go back.
So you're really hoping no reincarnation, you can finally rest in peace?
Oh no. I this is it. I think because I'm child free this time around on the earth, I think that I will not have to be sent back here for any reason. I don't need to come back and check on anybody. I don't have to make sure everybody's okay. Nope. Once my line in, that's it. And I hope that the Lord does not see it fit to send me back here. I'm ready to be gone.
Well, we are joined on this on this wonderful accidental two-part edition of 1+1 with Kim Brown, who is part of Black Power Media. Folks, check that out. She hosts her own program, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Folks, do check that out. And even if you don't watch the Real News Network for whatever reason anymore, you gotta watch the amazing archive of Kim Brown's work. You even got to interview my hero, John Pilger, which I have to talk to you about later. Wow. And yes, that's the end of the show. Kim, thank you so much for coming.